Hey guys, my name is Tim and I'm the master mechanic at Zeiten BMW Mobile Services. Today in this video we have 2011 BMW 528i and we're gonna do the oil pan gasket replacement. The first thing we're gonna do is raise the car up. For this particular video we're gonna be using the Ranger Quick Jack, and as you can see, like, it's all the way up. But if you don't have the Ranger Quick Jack, you definitely want to raise the car on all four corners, even though it's possible to do the oil pan gasket and the motor mounts just raising the front. It's better to raise the whole car, make sure it's secure, and proceed with the repairs. Now we're gonna remove the engine cover. It's 4 5mm Allen bolts. You can also use torx 30, fits right in. Then we're gonna remove this bar. Those bolts are different sizes. One is 16mm right here, and it's a short bolt, and the other one is 15mm right here, and it's gonna be a long one. So we're gonna take those off. After that, I'm gonna remove the air filter box with the mass airflow sensor. If you can get close by, I'll show you how to do that. Mass airflow sensor, you can just simply put the pick tool right here, move it out of the way. That's it. And here's the clamp for the air filter box, attaches to the intake boot, and let's get to it. Now we're gonna take the splash shield off. Those are 8mm bolts all around the perimeter. Not all of them here, of course. Some of them are missing. This one is for the engine. This part right here is where you jack the whole front up. So this is it, if you're just doing the front raise. And after that, we're gonna remove the other shield that's covering the transmission for the future jobs. So let's just remove that for now. And now we're gonna remove those plastic covers on the sides. It's approximately 6 or 7 8mm bolts as well. Here, over there, this one right here, the last one I'm removing. It's right behind the stabilizer link, sway bar link. There you go. And the other three is one right here, over there on top, and right here. Now it's free, almost. Let's see. Oh, there is also one clip right here, and the other one is right here. So 2 clips in total. You can see it's moving freely. There's also 1 and 2, and the one more clip is right here, is deep inside. So we need to remove that, and there you go. Now it's all free, and we can finally remove it. Just Go around all the components. Take your time. Now we're gonna remove one bolt from the motor mount. It's right here. I don't know if you can see. It's right there, facing towards the engine. We are on the passenger side right now, and it's a E14 bolt. So I'm gonna take it off, and then we're gonna do the same on the other side, but for that we'll need to remove those 10mm nuts that holding transmission lines in place, so we can move them a little bit, and take this the same bolt out of there. And after that we're gonna put the engine hoist and drop the subframe. There you go. So this is the upper motor mount bolt. Once again, E14 socket. That's what takes it off. So I'm gonna take those 10mm out, and this will allow us to move the transmission lines a little bit so we can access the motor mount upper bolt. Okay, now you can see the transmission lines are movable, and I was able to put the E14 socket on the wrench right there. Now we're gonna take it off. It's a little tough, but not that tough. After a couple twists, you can just take it out with your hands. That's it. Both bolts out. Let's get on top. Now we're gonna have to remove all the plastic from both sides. It sits on those clips. We need to do that in order to put the engine hoist and to put it on the metal, not break the plastic, which is already cracking down. So let's remove that and just go from there. Now the engine hoist is in place. Just make sure to see where we put it. It's right here. Basically, this is a stopping point. Same on the other side. And we don't need to lift it much. Just create some force. That's pretty much enough. And now we're gonna be able to just drop the subframe at 6 bolts as usual, and go from there. Okay, so we do have 6 bolts that are holding the subframe. We don't need to take basically anything else. It's one right here, same on the other side. The next bolt would be right here in the middle, 18mm, and the other one is right there. So exactly the same on the other side. We're gonna remove those two 8mm, so it's gonna flex a little bit more, and that's it. Just gonna loosen them first with a big breaker bar, and then we'll put the jack right here and take them all off and lower the subframe. Jack is in place. Now we're gonna completely take the bolts off. front bolt is shorter than the other two. The other two is the same size. The last part of subframe removal is to remove those two 13mm bolts that connect to the front reinforcement bar, and in order to do that we need to remove this air duct for the brakes. So what you're gonna do is there's two 8mm bolts right there, and then you're gonna push it forward just like that. And I also removed one torx 30 bolt from this the second part of the air duct, and there is a second one right there, torx 30, but I don't need to remove that. I just moved it, and it allowed me to remove this 13mm long bolt, and this one is shorter bolt. The bottom one is the shorter one. And now we're ready to lower the subframe. There you go. The motor mount is held by three 13mm bolts. They're different length. One right here in this hole, this is the axis, the other one right there, and that's the third one. That's the longest one, so we'll start with that. As you can see, that's a hell of a lot long bolt right there. Second one. Third one, and yep, two the same size, and the other one is the very long one. So now you can see right here the motor mount moves freely. We might need to lift the engine a little bit more, or lower the subframe a little bit more, or move it from side to side. It's a possibility. In order to remove the motor mount, I'm just gonna take this bracket off. That's where transmission lines hold on. It's torx 25. So we'll just take it out and take the motor mount out this way from the bottom. So the bracket out. The other side motor mount is straightforward to take out. There's nothing weird here, and it's real easy, just like that. A lot of room, real simple. Now we're at the point where we're gonna drain the oil. Make sure your oil pan is in place, because it's gonna be splashing everywhere, most likely. I got the new ring on the drain plug, and I'll put it back. Now we're ready to remove the oil pan. So I'm not gonna tighten it now, the drain plug. It's just, I don't have to remove it after all, like after this at all, and when we put it back I'll just tighten it and that's it. So we'll need now E18 deep socket. Well, deep is just simpler, to remove the bolts from the transmission mount bracket. Basically that's the part that attaches to the block, and this is where the motor mount goes. So the first bolt is right here, and I'll remove it from up top. The second one is right there. There it is, and I remove it from the bottom. It's gonna be simpler. We're gonna clear the access to the throttle body, and most likely I'm gonna remove it. I just need to see the final bolts for the motor mount support bracket, basically the one that attaches to the engine block. This hose is out, and then removing the intake boot. There's two clamps right there. I'm just gonna remove the bottom one, and I might even just do it from the bottom. We'll see. It's right here. Better to use 6mm socket, so way simpler to get there. Now we're gonna remove the throttle body. So the connector is, you push right here, or you put a pick tool right there. One of the two options. Put the pick tool right there, right here, and just pull it. This is it. And we have 4 10mm bolts that hold the throttle body. This will give us access for 2 torx 30 bolts that hold the electrical. It's kind of like electrical hub out there. Now we're gonna remove 2 torx 30 bolts. So one is right here, and the other one is right there. You can see it now. They're not too tough, so this will allow us to move this whole thing out of the way and remove the final bolts of this bracket. And now we can see this final bolt right there, clear access. Also, we'll take this line out. There's a clip in there, and this is it. The bracket is out, and that's the final bolt. It is hidden by the electrical hub that we disconnected, and so it's total 3 bolts. Here goes the clip for the wiring. So just take it off, and this is it. Now we are ready to remove all the bolts around the oil pan. I'll show you guys the ones that are hard to access, but overall it's pretty straightforward. Like, there is also some bolts from the transmission side going sideways, not horizontal basically. So let's get to it. So I'm taking those bolts by hand. It's easier. This one, and this one, and of course this one. There's 4 bolts, and we already took all of those. There is also gonna be 3 more E10 bolts. Those are E12s on the oil pan. Those are E10. We're gonna have to take this one out, the other one right here, and the other one right there, just above the transmission lines. So we have access to 3 bolts through this gap right here, and I'm using the medium size extension, then the long one, and those that are movable ones, like very short, and the socket. So, and we can get to 3 bolts from this spot. We can use the power tool or take them out by hand. This one, and the next one is this bolt right there. So this 2 bolts in the back, and after that we only have 3 bolts in the front, and those 3 E10 bolts from transmission. So we are almost done taking those out. Take some time, be patient, don't rush it, definitely. The last 3 bolts are easier to take from the top. Pretty simple from up here. And this is all the bolts of the oil pan. Now we only need to remove those 3 holding it onto transmission. Free this wiring, gives us a little bit more room in the back of the bolt right there. Now the first one is this one. They're not too tight. The second one. And the last one is right here. Okay. So I put 1 bolt in the front so the oil pan doesn't fall down. So it's time to take it off. And be careful, support the oil pan because it's gonna drop. It's not gonna fall on you, but it's gonna drop here, splash a lot of oil, very possible. There's oil still in there, and it's gonna be dripping oil all the time. So if you worry about your floor, just put something under. Now I took the sway bar off. It's 2 E18 bolts, like really tough ones, goes here and there, and the same on the other side. And I took off bolts for the rack and pinion. This allows the subframe to be pretty flexible, and this way we can take this oil pan completely out. I separated the gasket from the oil pan already, so it's not on the way of anything. And as you can see, we can now basically move it out of the way, but you have to be extremely careful and move it from both sides, front and back. I put the jack in here because it's pretty heavy unit right here. Just move it a little bit out of the way. Oil pan is out. The hardest part basically is to put those 2 pins around the transmission, basically in the back, and when you do that it creates like a lot of a big angle. This here's the oil pump located on the oil pan right here in the front, and you need to lift your engine as far as possible, but don't overdo it because it can be dangerous. What we do here, like we have it on the chain, and it's like almost all the way up. You can see there is no room in the back, and I also, as I said before, disconnected the sway bar and the rack and pinion. This allows the subframe to be a little bit more flexible, and this allows us to create a proper angle. It's just like you going a lot of back and forth. And first what I do is I lower it in the back, you probably saw that, and then just wiggle it around in the front. Let's clean it up. Might be a good idea to replace the O-ring on oil level sensor. That's what we're gonna do now. You can do it definitely when you're doing the oil change, but since we have the oil pan out, it just makes it easier. There you go. make sure the seal sits properly, and put it back in. So we got a new seal for comparison. This is how the new seal looks like. You see those edges, flexible and nice, real good rubber. Right here we have not that flexible and cracking. You can hear it, like you move it, it cracks. In the back especially, it's more like it's cracking everywhere and it becomes plastic. Right here you can see it. So this is how it leaks. This is why it leaks. The gasket, it's basically almost plastic everywhere. We're gonna start with putting the gasket first. Just leave it in there, and then putting the oil pan back in place. So this is what's gonna happen. The front over here, the gasket is already there. Then you need to make sure this stays out of the oil pan, because if you lock it, that would be unfortunate. Keep pushing. The gasket is pretty much free out there. Now we move towards the front. Definitely make sure the gasket is not locked between some parts of the engine and the oil pan. So you have to be extremely careful at this point. And we are almost done. The oil pan is in place. Now the only thing we need to do is align holes on the gasket and the oil pan. Put it in place. Just be careful, doesn't let it slide. Basically straightforward from here. You can always adjust the gasket. And definitely make sure it's aligned. I'm gonna put the first bolt in just a little bit so it stays in place. And we do the same all around. Meanwhile, we are still able to adjust the gasket, so we need to make sure it stays intact, and do not tighten any bolts unless all of them are in place. So we basically put all the oil pan bolts in place. They're not tight, they're just basically all the way in, but not tightened yet. And now we're gonna be doing the same with those transmission bolts. 3 bolts right there. Doing the same thing, and then we're gonna tighten it all. So we put the oil pan back in place, everything's tight, everything's good, everything looks good. Now we're gonna assemble everything back together, and I'll start with the rack and pinion. We're gonna put it in its place first, right here, and then we're gonna put the sway bar back on its spot. So we're gonna start with this one. heavy, but so good. Don't tighten all the way. That seems good. Now we can okay, the racking pinion is in place. It's not all the way tight, so now we can put the sway bar out here. Put the bushings in and put those guys. They go just like that. This is one. And here's another one. So, okay, those are in place. And you can mess it up, it will go only one way, basically. Let me see. Those are E18 bolts. The long one will go on the side of the rack and pinion, obviously. So we put that on. It's in thread. And the small one goes on the other side. Now it's basically secure, and we have the other one right here. Take the bushing out, that makes it easier. Okay, it doesn't stay. There you go. And the same thing applies. Push the rack and pinion a little bit. I'm gonna lift the rack and pinion a little bit so we don't have this angle of the bolts. And now we're gonna tighten it up. I put the motor mount back in place the same way I took it off. It's not hard. You just need to bend the transmission lines a little bit. They're flexible, it's alright. And now I'm just gonna put on those bolts in here. Just make sure everything aligned, and the thread on top is facing the engine because it's obviously important. So we're just gonna put it like that, not tightening it at all, and then we proceed with installing the bracket on top. We removed this bracket. In order to remove the oil pan, you can check it out in the other video on how to remove this bracket, but it's basically you remove the throttle body and a couple bolts out there and you're good to go. And now we're gonna install it back. We already put the motor mount in place. Now the only thing we just need to do is put this bracket right here on top of the mount, and there you go. Now it's in place. It's held by three pretty large bolts. Those are E18s. They all the same size, so you can't mess it up. And the corner bolt I would take from the bottom, and those two I would install it from here. So we got a new motor mount. I have plenty of room. There we go. Should sit exactly right. There is only one position it can go on. And now we're gonna put the bolts on. So again, it's two bolts like this, and one is super long. As you can see, both the same size and all threads. So the long one goes right here. Got it on. This one. And that's it. I'm just gonna make them tighter. Okay, and now we're ready to put the subframe back in place. Now's the time to put the subframe back in place. So we'll put the jack right here and slowly lift it up. There you go. And now we just need to slowly go in there. Goes forward. Remember, it should go into the bracket. And also pay attention to your motor mounts. Let me see. Yeah, it seems like this one goes in just fine, but the other side is a little bit troublesome. Let me check from top. So we have this side of the subframe is stuck a little bit on this frame. So what I'm gonna do is to put the screwdriver right in the hole where it's supposed to the bolts go, and just move it like that. Now I can see it's free and we can continue lifting it up. It doesn't go all the way. Let me release it a little bit. You can use your screwdriver or maybe one of the extensions to guide it all the way while you're putting it back. Okay. Seems like almost all the way in. Let me check. Hold on a second. This looks good. The back looks good. While the jack is supporting the subframe, we all good in all of the positions. Both motor mounts are in place. All the holes are aligned. Now we're gonna lower the engine completely. There we go. Now the engine is sitting entirely on the subframe, and this is the time. This is the time when we're gonna check again if everything aligned, and if it is, we'll just put it back together. So we'll start with the center ones. And I also will do the one in the front. Remember, it's the short one. Right here. On this side and the other side. After I put those in, we're gonna do the back ones. But it happens sometimes when in order to properly put the rear bolts of the subframe in, you need to jack it from those points right there so it's flush and everything's fine. But let's try and see. Yeah, it's a little bit misaligned, so I would say I will need to drop it a little bit and jack it from this point so it's completely flush with the frame of the car. So I tightened the front and the middle bolts, and this allowed me to put this one in without jacking this part, so it's all good. We're gonna do the same on the other side. Okay, so we got two final bolts. Like the longer one goes right here. As you can see, it's not fitting right now, and the bottom one goes right here, which fits just fine. In order to align those holes for the top bolt, you can either use your screwdriver inside the hole. You can also jack it up a little bit, but the best way is to basically put your hand right here and move this whole thing. You see it's moving with the radiator and everything. So this is what I found would be the best solution. And as you can see, it's all in, and the bottom one too. Now we can make them tight. And that's it here. Just don't forget to put your E14 bolt for the motor mount. It's right here, and the same one on the other side. We're almost done, just filling it up with oil. I'm gonna run it, test it before I put all the splash shields back in place, just to make sure nothing's leaking. And that's it. Like the rest is just cosmetics. The cover, the rubber seal right here, and the splash shields underneath. That's pretty much it. Well, the car's been running for a bit, and here are the spots you want to check in after oil pan gasket replacement. It's mostly, if it would be leaking, it would be leaking from this area right here all the way along the line, because this is the way the oil pan is angled. Also, we replaced the seal around the oil level sensor. And just look overall everywhere. If it's leaking, it would be leaking pretty much right away. If not, it's gonna be as clean as this one. Yep, all looks good. Good job. And now we are all done with the oil pan gasket replacement. This is a 2011 BMW 528i with the N52 engine, F10 body type. This is a pretty much labor-intensive job, and if it might get hard for you, just take your time, because it definitely requires a lot of patience, and do not just force some things on the way. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this video was helpful. See you next time.